Welcome. Imagine sitting by the fire listening to someone finally tell the truth. Tonight's story is about relationships, mistakes, and what comes after. Leave a quiet comment. Are you listening alone tonight or with someone sleeping beside you? Story 1. The day I met my husband's other family. I never thought the most honest conversation of my marriage would happen in a stranger's driveway, with the scent of another woman's lavender bushes hanging in the air and two children who had my husband's eyes staring back at me. My name is Chloe, and for 12 years I believed I knew the man I married. I was wrong in the most profound, gut-wrenching way possible. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about the life that was built in the shadows of mine and the moment the two collided. Our normal was a quiet, comfortable suburban rhythm. Ben worked in finance, a job that required late nights and occasional weekend conferences. I was a freelance graphic designer, working from our sunlit home office, planning our weekends around farmers markets and visits with my sister's kids. We were trying for a baby ourselves, a quiet, hopeful project that was beginning to wear the shiny patina off our intimacy, turning it into something scheduled and fraught with silent disappointment. The cracks were there, if I am honest. They were in the way he'd sometimes silence his phone screen a little too quickly when I walked into the room. They were in the vague details of his team-building retreats in a city just 2 hours away. They were in the new, careful distance in his touch, as if he was afraid of leaving too deep an imprint. I told myself it was stress, the pressure of providing, the shared melancholy of our unsuccessful attempts to start a family. I built a fortress of reasonable explanations because the alternative was unthinkable. The catalyst wasn't a text I found or a lipstick stain. It was a piece of mail, a bank statement for an account I didn't recognize sent to our home by mistake. Ben was on one of his weekend conferences. The name on the account was his, but the address was in Oakwood, a town 40 minutes south. My first thought was fraud. My second, a secret savings account for a surprisey vacation, maybe, or a down payment for a lake cabin we'd dreamed of. But the transactions told a different story. There were regular, bi-weekly deductions for Oakwood Montessori, for pediatric partners of Oakwood, for groceries at a market it'd never been to. There was a monthly mortgage payment. The amounts were substantial, a second life being funded. I sat at our kitchen island, the granite cold under my palms, and felt the world tip on its axis. I didn't cry. I just went very, very still. Have you ever had a moment where your brain simply refuses to connect the dots because the picture it's forming is too monstrous to comprehend? That was me. I spent the next day in a numb haze. I didn't confront him. I needed to see it. I needed the proof to be something I could touch, not just numbers on a page. So I drove to Oakwood. I had the address from the statement. It was a pretty, tree-lined street with bikes in driveways and flowering hydrangeas. The house was a charming blue colonial with a well-tended lawn and a plastic playhouse shaped like a castle in the backyard. I parked 3 houses down, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't know what I was waiting for, and then I saw them. Ben's car, not his work sedan, but the older Jeep he claimed he kept for weekend projects pulled into the driveway. He got out, his laugh lines crinkling in a way I hadn't seen in years. He was wearing clothes I didn't recognize, a faded band t-shirt and jeans. A woman with a dark, glossy ponytail came out of the front door, a toddler on her hip. She was beautiful in an effortless, sunny way. Ben walked over, kissed her, and took the child, swinging him up onto his shoulders. A girl, maybe 5 or 6, came barreling out after them, clutching a drawing. He knelt down, and she showed him her artwork with the proud, desperate for approval smile of a child. He examined it with a theatrical seriousness that made her beam. I watched my husband, the man who held me during my miscarriage, who I made coffee for every morning, be a father, be a husband, in another life. The physical pain was immediate, a hot, searing tear right through the center of my body. I must have made a sound because Ben looked up, his gaze scanning the street. He passed over my car, my familiar silhouette, and for a heart-stopping second locked onto mine. His face went from relaxed joy to pure, unadulterated terror. It was the confirmation I didn't know I needed. I drove away, my vision blurry. He called 17 times. I didn't answer. He texted, "Chloe, please, let me explain." Explain? What explanation could possibly exist? He came home that night to a house where I had packed a single suitcase. I was sitting in the dark living room. How long? My voice was a stranger's, flat and dead. He crumpled, sobbing, into the armchair. The story spilled out in broken fragments. Her name was Alina. They'd met 7 years ago at a conference. It started as a fling, then she got pregnant, then she had the little girl, Sophie. He felt responsible. He kept it going. Then the boy, Liam, came along. He claimed he'd tried to end it, but he couldn't abandon his children. He said he loved me, that his life with me was his real life, his chosen life. That she was obligation, a guilt-driven parallel universe. He said the words, "I never meant for this to happen," and I actually laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. The false hope came then, slippery and toxic. He begged. He promised to cut ties, to support them financially from afar, but be fully present with me. He said we could move, start fresh, finally have our own baby. For one horrifying, weak moment, I looked at the man I'd loved for over a decade, saw his agony, and considered it. The idea of walking away from 12 years, from our home, from the future I'd pictured, felt like death. Maybe my broken mind whispered, this could be the crisis that saves us. Maybe this is the rock bottom we needed. That hope lasted until the next morning when my doorbell rang. It was Alina. She stood on my porch, her face pale and set, those two beautiful, dark-eyed children clinging to her legs. She had none of the mistress bravado I expected. She looked terrified and heartbroken and utterly resolute. "He told me he told you everything," she said, her voice trembling. "He said it was over with us, that he was choosing you. I need you to hear my side. I need you to know that for the last 6 years, he has told me you were a cold, loveless business arrangement he was trying to exit. He told me you refused to give him a divorce. He told me I was his real family." She handed me a phone. On the screen were text threads, photos, videos, a chronicle of a loving, devoted family man. Birthday parties he missed with me because of work emergencies. Our anniversary weekend he cut short for Liam's asthma attack. There was a video of him, just last Christmas, putting together a dollhouse for Sophie in their living room while Id spent Christmas Eve alone because he was stuck at the office fixing a year-end error. The climax washed a scream. It was the silent shattering of every last illusion. Ben hadn't just lived a double life. He had meticulously pitted two families against each other, feeding each lies to sustain his deception. He had not chosen me last night. He had been chosen by neither. He was a man fleeing a sinking ship, looking for the nearest lifeboat. I looked from Alina's devastated face to the children, his children who were so innocent in all this. I saw my own reflected loss in her eyes. We were both victims of the same lie. I didn't invite her in. I just said very quietly, "I believe you." I closed the door. I heard Ben's car screech into the driveway, heard his panicked voice, heard her crying. I walked to the back of the house, my suitcase still by the door, and called a lawyer. The fight that followed was not with him, but for myself. The custody battle was bitter and surreal, as he fought not for our non-existent children, but to reduce support for the ones he had, painting Alina as unstable to save his finances. The financial betrayal was deep. He drained our joint savings to fund his other home. I saw the man I loved transform into a strategic, cold-eyed stranger in courtroom hallways. It's been 18 months now. The divorce is final. I live in a small apartment that smells only of me. Ben is trying to piece together a life with Alina and the kids, a relationship born from ashes and deceit. I don't know if they'll make it. I don't think about it much. My therapist says I am in the long, slow work of emotional survival. Some days are okay. Some days the memory of that driveway, of his face illuminated by a joy I hadn't inspired in years, hits me like a physical blow. I am learning a new kind of love now. It's quieter. It's for the friends who showed up, for the sister who let me cry without offering solutions, for myself, for the woman who drove to Oakwood and had the courage to look. I don't know if I'll ever trust someone that deeply again, but I know I survived the unveiling of a truth that was designed to break me. And sometimes that feels like the most powerful love story of all. Thank you for listening to my story. It's one of the hardest things I've ever shared, but there's a strange comfort in knowing we're not alone in our heartbreaks. If you've ever faced a betrayal that rewired your understanding of reality, I see you. Please share your own experiences or words of support in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, please give this video a like and subscribe for more real, raw journeys of the heart. Your support means the world. Story 2, The Message on Our Wedding China. I found the note on the day I decided to be the perfect wife again. It was a Tuesday, and the dust motes swam in the slats of afternoon light cutting through the blinds of our quiet suburban home. I was doing what I always did when the silence got too loud. I was cleaning. Not the frantic, surface wiping of a regular day, but a deep, archaeological dig into the corners of our shared life. I was polishing the wedding china, the set from my grandmother that we used exactly once a year on our anniversary. The cream-colored plates with the delicate gold rim felt cool and heavy in my hands. As I lifted the second dinner plate from the felt-lined box, a small, folded square of lavender stationery fluttered out and landed on the oak table. It wasn't mine. The handwriting was a flowing, feminine script I didn't recognize. My heart didn't plummet. It simply clenched, a slow, cold fist in my chest. I knew with a certainty that felt ancestral that my life was about to bifurcate into a before and an after. Before I unfolded the paper and after. Our normalcy up until that moment was a carefully constructed exhibit. My Sarah and my husband David were the picture of quiet, post-40 contentment. We had the house with the hydrangeas, 2 kids at college, and a golden retriever named Gus who sighed a lot. Our arguments were mild about recycling and the thermostat. Our affection was a comfortable, worn sweater, but the cracks were there if you knew where to look. They were in the way David had started taking his phone to the bathroom with him every single time, a new habit in the last 8 months. They were in the work conferences that seemed to pop up with sudden frequency, always in the city just an hour away. They were in the new cologne, something spicy and unfamiliar, and the way he'd sometimes look at me with an expression I couldn't decipher, not quite guilt, not quite distance, but a strange, preoccupied pity. He'd chosen to patch those cracks with optimism, with homemade meals and suggesting weekend getaways he'd gently decline. I told myself this was just the phase everyone talked about, the empty nest settling around us. I was determined to be the woman who gracefully weathered it. Have you ever had a gut feeling you chose to ignore? A tiny, whispering voice you drowned out with logic and laundry and the sheer, exhausting effort of maintaining the status quo. For months, it'd been silencing that voice. It spoke up when David bought me extravagant, unasked-for jewelry. It murmured when he'd be overly helpful around the house, as if compensating for a secret debt. It'd tell myself, he's just getting older, he's reflecting, he's trying to be a better husband. It'd pour that uncertainty into baking banana bread, into reorganizing the garage. Looking back, the self-deception was its own kind of labor, more exhausting than any physical work. The note was short. It wasn't a love letter. It was worse. It was intimate. It read, "David, last night was perfect. Thank you for the champagne, the laughter, for remembering I love gardenias. I put one in this note for you to find. I know it's complicated, but my heart is so full. Until next Tuesday, my love." A single wilted gardenia petal, brown at the edges, was pressed into the fold. The sensory details are burned into me. The faint sweetrot scent of the dried flower, the smooth texture of the expensive paper, the violent copper taste of adrenaline in my mouth. The world didn't go blurry, it became hyper-focused. The grain of the oak table, the hum of the refrigerator, the weight of the plate still in my other hand. It was the mundane object, me grandmother's wedding china, the symbol of my own marital promise that had become the vessel for this truth. He had hidden her note here of all places. Was it a place he knew I rarely looked, or was it a perverse hiding in plain sight? I stood there for 10 minutes, maybe 20, just breathing, the note a live wire in my hand. I didn't confront him that night. I crafted a false hope so beautiful it almost convinced me. I told myself it could be from a past affair long over, a relic he'd kept and forgot. Maybe he was someone from before me and he'd tucked it away and truly didn't remember. I made his favorite meatloaf. I asked about his day. I watched him, a scientist observing a strange new species. He was kind, distracted, tired. He complimented the meatloaf. He didn't look at the china cabinet. When he hugged me goodnight, his new cologne filled my nostrils, and I imagined it masking the scent of gardenias. I lay beside him in the dark, constructing a narrative where I was the bigger person, where this secret would fade into the attic of our history if I just loved him harder. For a few days, I lived in that bubble of willful ignorance. I even felt a strange sense of power, of martyrdom. I was choosing my marriage, choosing us over some old note. The climax wasn't a screaming fight. It happened in the sterile, bright light of a gas station convenience store. It was a Thursday. David was on another conference. The silence in the house was a physical pressure. I got in my car and just drove, nowhere and everywhere. I found myself near the hotel he'd mentioned, a generic business suite place off the highway. I wasn't planning to spy. I felt pulled there by a morbid gravity. I parked across the street, my hands shaking on the wheel. I told myself I would just see his car, confirm he was here for work, and leave. Then I saw them. They came out of the main doors, not touching, but the space between them was charged, intimate. She was tall, with a laugh I could almost hear through the glass. She handed him a takeout coffee cup, her fingers brushing his. And he smiled at her, a smile I hadn't seen in years, a smile of unguarded, boyish delight. It was the smile that broke me. Not the anger, not the betrayal, but the theft of that smile. He had been keeping it for her. I watched him walk her to a sleek blue car. He leaned in the driver's window, said something that made her throw her head back and laugh. Then right there in the gas station parking lot, under the harsh fluorescent lights, he kissed her. It wasn't a peck. It was a slow, familiar, married kiss. I didn't cry. I didn't honk the horn. I just sat there, engine off, cold seeping into my bones. The confrontation came later in our kitchen under the same afternoon light where Id found the note. I was waiting, the lavender stationery on the table between us. He came in humming. He saw my face, then he saw the paper. His own face didn't crumple in guilt, just emptied. "Sarah," he said, and that one word was a full confession. I didn't ask who she was. I asked, "How long have you been unhappy?" He looked at the floor. "I don't know. Do you love her?" A long pause. "It's complicated." And in that moment, I saw the rest of my life with him, a life of complications, of his distracted heart, of me always wondering which version of him I was getting. The love I felt didn't vanish. It mutated into a vast, aching sorrow. The choice became clear, not between fighting for him or letting him go, but between losing myself in his complication or walking alone into an uncertain, terrifying freedom. I said the only true thing left. It's not complicated for me anymore. I left the note on the table and walked out of the kitchen. Now the wedding china sits in its box, a relic of a museum that closed. I don't know if I'll ever use it again. Some days the quiet of this house feels like healing. Other days it feels exactly like the quiet before I found the note. The only difference is now it's my quiet. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's one of the hardest things I've ever shared. If you've ever faced a moment that shattered your trust and forced you to rebuild from the ground up, I see you. Please share your own experiences or words of support in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe for more real, raw journeys of the heart. Your support means the world. Story 3, the text message that wasn't for me. I never thought my entire life could shatter because of a single misplaced notification. It didn't come with a bang or a scream or a dramatic scene. It arrived on a Tuesday evening, humming quietly on the kitchen counter, a tiny digital tremor that would crack the foundation of everything I believed was real. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how my husband's phone, a forgotten charger and 2 lines of text, unraveled a decade of marriage and exposed a betrayal so profound It felt like looking into a funhouse mirror at a stranger's life. That Tuesday started with the comforting, mundane rhythm of our suburban life. I was packing lunches, peanut butter and jelly for our 7-year-old daughter, Lily, a turkey sandwich for Ben, my husband of 10 years. The morning sun streamed through the bay window, catching the dust motes dancing above the Lego-strewn floor. Ben kissed the top of my head, his familiar scent of coffee and cedarwood shampoo filling the air as he grabbed his briefcase. "Love you, see you tonight," he said, his voice warm and automatic. "Don't forget Lily's soccer practice is at 5, I reminded him, and he gave a thumbs up, already half out the door. It was a scene replicated 1,000 times, but the cracks were there if I'd chosen to look. The way he'd started taking his phone into the bathroom with him every morning. The new passcode he'd set 6 months ago for work security. The vague tiredness in his eyes he'd blamed on a demanding project at the architecture firm. I'd chalked it all up to stress, to the quiet erosion that sometimes settles into a long marriage. I chose the comforting narrative of a rough patch over the terrifying possibility of a seismic fault line. He'd been home for an hour that evening when he realized it. "Sarah, have you seen my charger? The one for the car?" he called from the hallway, a note of panic in his voice. "I think I left my good one at the office and my phone's on 1%. I found the spare in the junk drawer." "Here," I said, handing it to him. "Plug it in here and let it charge for a bit before you go." He frowned, looking at his nearly dead device. "I need to make a call for work. Can you just bring it out to me when it hits 10%? It'll be in the car." Pressed the power button, sighed at the black screen and set it down on the quartz countertop with a soft click before heading out to the driveway. I went back to wiping down the table, the silence of the kitchen broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. That's when it happened. A sharp double buzz. The screen, still dead to the world just seconds before, lit up with a surge of power from the charger. A text message notification bloomed on the lock screen. It was the message itself I saw first. It was the name, Maddie, 7:02 p.m., and the preview, just 2 lines visible. "Can't stop thinking about last weekend. When can I see you again? My place is so empty without the world." Didn't go silent, became hyper-sharp. The sound of the cloth swiping across the table grain was like sandpaper on my soul. The clock ticked too loudly. My own breath hitched in my throat. Maddie, his new junior project manager. The one he'd mentioned a few times, always with a dismissive wave. Smart kid, a bit needy, always asking for extra guidance. I stared at those glowing words. Last weekend. Ben had gone on a supposed team-building camping trip with his department. He'd come home sun-kissed and smelling of pine and campfire, full of stories about a bear sighting and a leaky tent. He'd even shown me a blurry photo of a raccoon. A perfectly constructed alibi, complete with wildlife. Have you ever had a moment where your body knows the truth before your mind can catch up? Visceral physical reaction to a psychic wound. My hands went cold, my stomach dropped like a stone. This wasn't a gut feeling to ignore, it was a gut punch, evidence served on a 6-inch screen. I stood there frozen, my eyes glued to that damning preview. The phone buzzed again. Another message from Maddie, preview below the first. "You said you'd figure things out with her after the holiday. I'm trying to be patient, but I was her. The inconvenient wife, the problem to be figured out." After the holiday, we were hosting Thanksgiving for both our families in 3 weeks. He was planning his exit strategy around a turkey dinner. The back door opened. "Is it charged?" Ben called, his voice cheerful, normal. I didn't move. I couldn't. He walked into the kitchen, his smile fading as he saw my face, my posture, my eyes fixed on his phone. He followed my gaze. The color drained from his face. In that instant, in the sheer unguarded panic that flashed in his eyes before he could compose himself, I had my confirmation. No denial in the world could erase that look. "Sarah, I can explain," he started, his voice tight, taking a step toward the counter. "Don't," I whispered, the words scraping out. "Don't you dare." He lunged for the phone, but I was closer. My hand closed around it, the cool glass a shocking contrast to the fire in my veins. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. "Who is Maddie?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm. "She's a colleague. It's not what it looks like. Those messages are out of context," he babbled, running a hand through his hair. "It's a work thing. She's been having personal problems. I've been mentoring her. You mentored her in her bed last weekend." The question hung in the air, brutal and blunt. He flinched as if it'd struck him. "It was a mistake," he pleaded, his eyes begging. "One time, it meant nothing. I love you. I love Lily. I love our life." It was a stupid, massive error in judgment. I was going to end it. "I am ending it, please." The false hope he offered was a sedative, a warm blanket in the freezing cold. For a fleeting second, my heart grasped at it. A one-time mistake, a horrible error, something we could maybe possibly with years of therapy move past. The alternative at the end of my family, the fracturing of my daughter's world, was too vast to contemplate. I wanted to believe the simpler, cleaner lie. The climax didn't happen that night. We moved through the house in a stunned, silent ballet, avoiding each other, putting on cartoons for Lily, speaking in clipped tones about homework. We went to bed on opposite edges of the mattress, a canyon of betrayal between us. The real confrontation came days later in the cold blue light of my own laptop in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. It'd taken Lily and gone there for a few days, telling her daddy had a big work project. I needed space to think. But thinking was a trap. I needed to know. Driven by a pain so acute it was robotic, I did the thing I'd always judged in movies. I logged into our shared cloud account, one we use for storing family photos and important documents, and I searched not for Maddie, but for locations, for calendar entries he might have forgot to hide. I found a series of saved locations: a boutique hotel in the city not near his office, a romantic, pricey bistro, an apartment building in a trendy neighborhood, dates going back 9 months. 9 months. The rough patch had a name, a face, and a furnished apartment. Then I saw the receipts automatically scanned from his email. Jewelry purchases he'd never received, dinner bills for 2 on nights he told me he was working late, and a single scanned document, a lease agreement for that apartment building. Tenant, Madeline S. co-signer. Benjamin R. My husband had co-signed a lease for his mistress. The emotional climax was quiet. It was me alone in the silent, floral wallpapered room of my youth, staring at the evidence of a parallel life. The family man here, the devoted husband and father. And there in the city, a man with a second home, a second relationship, a second reality where we didn't exist. The fight, when I confronted him with this, wasn't fiery. It was desolate. He stood in our living room, all his lies laid bare, and he didn't cry. He just deflated. I didn't know how to stop, he said, his voice hollow. It started as a distraction, and then it became this other life. I felt trapped in both. I'm so sorry, Sarah. You deserve so much better. The apology wasn't for the affair. It was for getting caught, for the mess, for the impossibility of gluing our Humpty Dumpty marriage back together. The love I'd seen in his eyes for a decade was gone, replaced by a weary shame and a terrifying resignation. He had already left us. We just hadn't received the forwarding address. Now I sit in a different kitchen in a small rental house. Lily is asleep upstairs. The divorce papers are signed, the custody arrangement amicable on paper, a fragile truce. He sees her every other weekend. He lives in that apartment with Maddie. I heard through the grapevine she's pregnant. My old life is a ghost town, and I am both the survivor and the sole resident of this new, quieter world. I look at my daughter's drawings on the fridge and feel a love so fierce it cracks my chest open. But some nights I still see that text message glowing on the counter, a digital ghost that haunts the space between what I believed and what was true. I learned that trust isn't a vase you can glue back together. It's a vapor, and once it's gone, you're just breathing empty air. I'm learning to breathe again, one quiet, solitary Tuesday at a time. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's one of the hardest things I've ever shared, but there's a strange comfort in not carrying it alone. If you've ever faced a betrayal that redefined your world, or if you're still picking up the pieces, please know you're not alone. Share your thoughts, your own experiences, or just a word of support in the comments below. Your stories and connection are what make this community so powerful. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real, raw stories about love, loss, and the messy journey of healing. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more Reddit relationship stories.